The first rule of Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie is like, subscribe, and share. The second rule of Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie is like, subscribe, and share. So if you're listening to the podcast, stop it now, especially if you're on YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share. It's that simple. Okay, now we can move on. Welcome to Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
Sticking feathers up your butt does not make you a chicken.
Okay, and joining us again, the podcaster with a degree in terror, Tony.
Hey, how's it going?
All right, tonight we will be discussing the 1999 action movie Fight Club, written by Chuck Palahniuk and Jim Willis, directed by David Fitchner, starring Edward Norton, Brad Pitt, Helena Bonham Carter, and Meatloaf. As always, this podcast will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, then come back and listen to the podcast.
You've lost Tony already.
There wasn't even one name pronounced correctly the entire.
I got Fitchner.
It's David Fincher.
Oh, okay. Well, insert Fincher for Fitchner every time I say it.
Oh.
Okay. I would like to take a minute to welcome our new listeners in the lovely country of Brazil. Welcome to the show. And also, I would like to ask you to please take a moment, like, subscribe, especially if you're listening on YouTube. And if you would like to help support the show, you can commission a movie of your choice for you or as a gift to a friend or a loved one for a donation of just $40 or more. And think about it. For all the entertainment we're giving you, 3 hosts, sometimes 4, over an hour of entertainment, what's $40? Come on, help us out. We pay for this thing out of our own pockets. Just contact the show on our Facebook page. Hey, did you ever see that movie on Facebook? To make your request and make your payment via PayPal or Venmo. So there you go. And if you don't want to cough it up, you can just keep listening to our picks for free, you cheap bastards. Okay, let's do some quick opening facts. I've got a few. So number 1, believing that the character would not have perfect teeth, Brad Pitt took it upon himself to have his front teeth chipped for the film. He then had his teeth restored after filming was complete. The man is dedicated to the craft, right? Fincher had no idea he was going to do it. So pretty good. Number 2, Meatloaf had to wear 90-pound fat harness and shoes with 8-inch lifts to tower over Norton because Meatloaf had lost quite a bit of weight by the time of the filming. He also wore fake boobs, which were made of flaxseed and weighed 28 pounds. Fitchner had 1 set with nipples and 1 set without nipples, just in case the studio objected, but they didn't, so we got full bitch tits on our Meatloaf. And number 3, the unbelievably bitchy and annoying Rosie O'Donnell, unless it's in Stakeout 2, which I really enjoyed her performance there with Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss, was not a fan of the film Fight Club and proceeded to spoil the end twist and told all of her viewers not to see the movie on her show. This created a lot of discontent among both spoiler haters and Fight Club fans. Brad Pitt called it unforgivable. What a fucking bitch. Had to ruin it for everybody just because she didn't like it.
Norton was pissed. Brad Pitt was pissed. They were all really angry that she did that.
Bullshit, man. A garbage move. Dylan, what do you got?
Okay, so
I should have read yours too.
If you had read mine, I'd just punch you in the throat. I just go upstairs, punch you in the throat, and then come back downstairs.
Be Fight Club?
Okay. It would be Fight Club.
Okay.
So they really wanted Radiohead to do the score for the movie and couldn't get them. They spent a ton of time listening to OK Computer. Like him and Brad Pitt would listen to OK Computer on a repeat when they were like working on dialogue, working on scenes. So like it's funny that you ended up with the Dust Brothers, which is still incredibly 90s. Like you're talking about two incredibly 90s flavored bands. So, I mean, it works great, but it makes me wonder what we would have gotten if it had been Radiohead instead, if it would change the tone of the film at all, or if they just would have written for it to work with it. I don't know, but that was what he wanted. Also, this came out at the same time as The Matrix. Like this is all the same time in the middle of that Y2K panic.
Obviously, it looks and sounds just like it.
It's very similar.
Very
and
similar.
And he did this one after Seven. So he had worked with Brad Pitt in Seven. And Brad Pitt got 17 million plus to do this movie. And I guess some people were saying like Brad Pitt's lost his cool, so he did this movie to get his cool back because I mean, Tyler
Mission
Durden's
accomplished.
Tyler Durden's a cool character, but I guess Fitchner said, well, if he needed to do the film, why did he cost us $17 million? So he didn't really need to do the film, but I think he really wanted to.
Right. Yeah. From what I understand, somebody broke their hand on Brad Pitt's abs. No, true story.
Well, so they had said, because they didn't want Brad Pitt. They wanted like a Mickey Rourke type or something like that. And they were saying, men don't want to see Brad Pitt without his shirt on because then they feel bad about themselves. And women don't want to see him all beat up and bloody. They want to see him looking handsome. And I was like, I don't know. I thought he was pretty great in this film. It worked for me.
There's only two actors I can see as Tyler Durden, and we'll get to it at the end. Tony, what do you got?
No, I just you took away the bitch. I didn't know about the flaxseed. That was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I did know about the nipples and nippleless suits. I did know that.
It's like 40-year-old version when Steve Carell is like, he's like, you know what a boob feels like? It feels like a bag of sand, right?
I always got. I mean, the only thing I got is just the fact that how confused so many people were by it. I mean, the thing that I didn't get after it came out is like, look, it's hard not to agree with a lot of Project Mayhem's theories. We'll say their beliefs. The way they do it obviously is bad, but it's like this got lumped into like the Joker romance and the Punisher as these idealistic antiheroes. And I can't go that route because I hate to say, like, the more I watch the movie, the more I'm like, fucking, they're on. They should have fucking blow up all the credit cards. It's like, it's like, but we'll get to that. So, I mean, I find it funny still going into like doing some of the research, going into some of the chat rooms. It's literally 50-50. People love it and people fucking like it's disgusting. These people are garbage human beings. It's like it's terrorism, but but then you have to look. It's like, all right, great. An old woman stole a piece of bread to feed her family. Is she right or wrong? It comes down to the morality play of the time, the era, and the meaning behind it. So we'll get to it.
Let's do some quick opening thoughts on this one. So I haven't sat down and watched this movie from beginning to end in probably 10 years, and I've only watched it in its entirety once or twice. So this was a pretty fresh watch for me. I mean, I've sat down to it dozens of times and caught, half hour here, half hour there, but only really, run through it all a couple of times. So it was pretty fresh for me. Dylan, had you watched it before preparing for the podcast?
Yes, I have seen it multiple times before, but I have not watched it in recent years. So while it was not fresh and I knew the twist and I knew where we were going, there was definitely parts that I had forgotten. So it was good to watch it again.
Okay. And Tony, I know that you are familiar with this movie, correct?
Love this movie. Sorry, first night out, read about it before it came out. Just meet Fincher, Norton, Pitt, Bonham Carter. It's like, that's just, I'm in, I'm sold. There's only a handful of posters I have in my house hung up. This is one of them because it just had a huge impact on me when it came out. And again, for better or for worse, we'll get into the morality play later. But I bought into it. I loved the ultimate message of the only way to grow is to lose completely everything. And it's unfortunately something that I've been through at least 2 or 3 times in my life. I've hit bottom and had to recreate myself. So I related to this, unfortunately, more than I thought I would. So
Yeah, there are a bunch of cool messages in this that we'll get into, facing down your fears, the taste of breakfast after you've, gone out of your comfort zone and done something that, we'll get into it, but some
yeah,
really great stuff here. Okay, let's do a box office budget on this one, which was $65 million. We've already determined that 17 million of that went to our star, Brad Pitt. I think it was worth every penny. He makes this movie. He's incredible. And what a foil he plays against fucking Ed Norton, who was also incredible, coming off American History X, where he was huge and so intimidating in that movie. And I think that's why he is such a great opposite side of the coin of Brad Pitt while both playing Tyler Durden. He's believable as a badass to me. He just is. I mean, even though, Pitt was bulking up over the shoot of the movie, put on 20 pounds of muscle, and Ed Norton was doing the opposite. He was losing weight during the production. I still bought him right up to the end as being a badass, and I can see people following, Norton as a Tyler Durden coming off American History X. So I think that really helped his role here. And it made $101 million.
You veered off course a little bit there.
Sorry. I did. I mean, it's no surprise. I did eat a gummy and we started a little later than I thought. So I started rambling.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. So yes, you're right. It did make that amount, but it didn't make that amount until it hit DVD, or was it? It might have even been
home
tape
video.
spin then. Yeah, home video. It only made
No.
37 million when they initially released it, and it was considered a flop, like a big time flop.
It wasn't well received at all.
Yeah,
it was like,
No.
you'd be like 100 million. How did it do that? Because it was like 55 to 60 plus when it first came out on home video. So that's where it made most of its money.
yeah. Thanks, Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, fucking bitch. All right, let's get into it. I will give you the quick synopsis, and then we will break this sucker down for you. One dude makes soap as two men. Glenn. No, I joke. An insomniac office worker and a devil-may-care soap maker from an underground fight club that evolves into much more. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's what you get.
All right. We back out of the webbing of neurons and brain cells as the title credits appear, finding ourselves emerging from the forehead of our narrator as he looks down the barrel of a gun that's been stuck in his mouth. The gun is held by a man named Tyler, who checks his watch, counting down to ground zero, before he asks if the narrator has anything to say. The narrator mumbles through the gun before it's removed and says more clearly that he can't think of anything. As Tyler looks out the high-rise window to the dark city below them, the narrator recalls just how he met Tyler before stopping himself and bringing us back to the beginning of the story. The narrator hasn't slept in 6 months. His job as a traveling product recall specialist for a car company doesn't help his insomnia since he must travel often, experiencing bouts of jet lag in addition to everyday stress of his position, admiring the tiny life of single-serving soap and shampoo at every location. When he can't sleep, he surfs the internet channels, or I'm sorry, not even the internet, he surfs the channels and browses through the Fernie catalog, which is a parody of IKEA, purchasing the next piece of decor to add to his apartment. He's a self-proclaimed slave of consumerism. He goes to his doctor seeking help, but all the doctor will do is suggest an herbal supplement instead of drugs, and that the narrator visit a support group for testicular cancer to see real pain there. There, the narrator meets Robert Bob Paulson, an ex-bodybuilder and steroid user who suffers from an extreme case of gynecomastia due to hormone treatments after his testicles were removed. Bob is quite willing to hug the narrator in support. Stuck between Bob's enormous breasts, the narrator finally finds peace and bursts into tears. The emotional release allows him to sleep, and he subsequently becomes addicted to support groups, mapping out his week, attending different meetings, and feigning illnesses. However, the appearance of a woman named Marla throws the narrator's system out of whack. He recognizes her as a tourist, having seen her at multiple meetings, including the testicular cancer, and he is disturbed by her lies to the point where he can't sleep anymore. So I'm incredibly amused that he is so incensed by her doing exactly what he's doing. You're doing that. And somehow you have ownership on it, but okay. Also later, I mean, obviously everyone has seen this movie. If you haven't already, you're in trouble. When you learn that there are split personalities, you realize Tyler is the one that's behind the wheel when he's sleeping. he says when you have insomnia, you're never really asleep and you're never really awake. So to me, it says I almost wonder if he had insomnia trying to fight this split personality. Like he wasn't letting himself fall asleep. But then when he's falling asleep, it gives Tyler that extra, like now all of a sudden he's sleeping and now Tyler has that extra boost to like break the fourth wall, so to speak,
So anybody that loves this movie, you're welcome, because I'm going to tell you what was really going on. But I'm going to wait till the end in my alternate ending, because my alternate ending happens to reveal the true essence of this story in our narrator. But I digress. We'll get to that when we get to it. But you're all going to be excited. I'm going to turn the light on for you. Okay, so the first shot, we get this neuron passage thing. This is the Matrix. And I'm glad they didn't go with Radiohead, because the music that they used for this it fit the stylistic visual aspect of the movie perfectly. And I don't think a bunch of like pop, 90s songs were going to enhance this film for me. I think it would have fucking dragged it underwater. And I like Radiohead, but no. So Tony, I hadn't watched it in so long. When he's in the doctor's office asking for medication to sleep and he walks out into the hallway, I was like, what the fuck is that? Like the little flash.
There's about 5 of them in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's
so I stopped
good.
it frame by frame, and I stopped it, and it's one frame.
Yep.
And it's just Brad Pitt standing behind the doctor. And I took a picture of it and showed to Lynn. I said, did you notice this? I thought it was so cool. And the way they used it, like they could have put it in there for 2 frames and you might have like actually noticed what you saw. Like you actually would say, okay, that's Brad Pitt. But it looked almost like a ghost in a horror movie. Like they wanted you to see and I thought it was so good. And when they're in his apartment and they're, itemizing all the things that he's ordered off IKEA to give you his perfect, quote unquote American Psycho apartment, right? I love that he's on the phone calling IKEA, ordering
That's what it was
not
like.
ordering it online. And these are the only things for me that make this movie feel dated. You take out all that stuff and put in modern tech, cell phones, internet, and this could have been shot yesterday. It was fucking awesome. Yeah. And then finally, there were several actresses considered for Marla. First one was Reese Witherspoon. They thought she was too young, but they really wanted her. But they thought she was too young for this, and she ended up getting election instead. The second one was Courtney Love, and she's just crazy, and they could foresee it was going to be trouble. And I believe she was in a relationship with Ed Norton at the time.
She was dating Ed Norton at the time, and he was like, that could be trouble. And then on top of it, there was 2 stories. One was that, and one was the Kurt Cobain movie that Brad Pitt wanted to do, and she wouldn't give her blessing. And so Brad Pitt was like, don't let her do the movie because she's a bitch,
She probably would have been.
She would have been fantastic.
She would have been great.
Yeah.
Well, she was coming off of Larry Flint. That's how she met Edward Norton.
Right.
And she was awesome in that.
Yeah.
When she cleaned herself up for the Oscars, she was like really good. But yeah, she took a quick fucking nosedive after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next actress was Janine Garofalo, who again I think could have pulled this off. It would have been like a diet version of the actress we got. Like it would have been a watered down kind of bland version. But I could see her pulling it off. It wouldn't have been as good.
No, she's too monotonous. Like she's her monotone. Whereas Helena Bonham Carter, like her expressions, her body movements, just the way she she was perfect. Like this is one of those ones. If we were still doing the recasting, I'm like, fuck you. I'm not casting anybody.
Yeah,
everyone in this movie was perfect.
And then I did that with Guns N' Roses. We did Appetite for Destruction last week, and I didn't replace anybody. I'm like, fuck you guys. And I didn't take a song off the album. I'm like, sorry, boys, not happening. No. Not for this one. And it is the new #1 song on the Breaking Vinyl chart.
Really?
So,
wow. Okay.
Yes. And then finally, it was Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think she could have probably pulled this off pretty good. She's a pretty good actress. She's a little goody two shoes looking for the part, but she's got the chops to do it. But I think they made the right choice.
You rough her up. I think she could have done it, but I really do like what Helena brought to the role. So
yeah, she is the role. It's like Tony said, don't take anybody out of this movie. Tony, what did you think about those scenes?
I just felt that we got so much information in the first 10 minutes that, we learn everything about Edward Norton that we need to know. Why he's awake, what his job is, who his boss is, why he hates everything about his life. not only because of the insomnia, but because of what his job actually does.
Right.
The fact that we got those one frame clips, so many, like right in a row, you start to go, all right, what am I missing something? Am I not seeing something? And it always comes around the time when he is his most either tired, most stressed, or most annoyed is when they pop in Tyler Durden.
Right.
And the fact that once he does start to sleep, you're right. Is that when Tyler suddenly has so much, we'll call it power,
Yes.
because he's sleeping so long. That's when he starts getting his jobs, the projectionist, the working for the food company. It's like he has so much to do in such a small amount of time. It has to be during those times he can hold those positions while Edward Norton is sleeping.
Right.
So it's like trying to get the balance of like, how does Tyler hold all these jobs when they're supposed to be during like, a food catering company? You got to be on like 9. The latest you're getting to your shift is 8:00.
Yeah.
So what's Edward Norton doing? Like, there's got to be some crossover. That's what some of the things I started, like the cracks in the logic I started to see this time through. But again, minuscule, letting him go because the characters and the dialogue in this movie, fuck the dialogue, is just so fucking fast, so smart, and delivered with such, it's not even a word, a badass. Like every line is delivered so cool. It's like, oh, these fucking guys are so cool living in filth, being just degenerates, being these fucking people you like, you wouldn't even like give a second glance for on the street, but goddamn, they fucking cool. So
Agreed.
those are my intro thoughts.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And honestly, like, so I appreciate that he didn't get too cute with the reveal, the magic of what's happening behind the story, because he's telling you ahead of time. Like, you see it, it's out there, and you can, if you watch that movie a second time, you're starting to pick it up. You're seeing, this was a clue, this was a clue, this was a clue. He was telling me all along what was happening. Just the fact that you start the movie inside his brain, it's a clue.
Yeah.
It's telling you this is all in his head. And I was like, oh, that's fucking brilliant.
Just the way there are never names given.
Yeah, he never has a name.
Pronouns are used the way that you don't know if it's talking about one person or two people. How is it working? And the fact that, like, when Tyler's like, "Don't ever talk about me to Marla,"
Right.
It's like, and just finishing each other's sentences. It's just all of it works so good. Second, third, fourth time through, you pick up every hint.
Yeah.
So well done.
Absolutely.
The first time that I watched this movie, I knew pretty quick that what I was seeing was up for interpretation immediately, and I put together that they were the same person. I mean, it was not a reveal.
Oh.
You're the only person I've ever heard say that this didn't shock them.
You're being,
come on,
you're
swear
being
to God.
cute.
Every single person.
I'm not
had
being
no
cute.
idea, because they're, even when like they're in the basement of fucking Lou's, they're both sitting there. People, until you realize this the second time through, you don't realize that people aren't looking at one or the other. They're looking at just one. So I literally never picked up on it, and I'm good about that shit. So for you to say that, I'm like shocked. No one I know has ever picked up on it.
You're full of shit.
Okay, just keep going.
I'll take your word for it, but you are literally the only person I know that did.
But no, okay, so here's what's funny. So I pretty quickly into this the first time, and this time especially, I mean, I already knew that they were more than likely the same person. It felt like a dream. It was like it wasn't reality. I knew what I was seeing wasn't reality, and this felt like two sides of the same person. But during this watching is when I developed my new theory that I think was the real twist, where I went, oh my God, how didn't I notice this before? And this is the one that's more subtly feathered in. But when I tell you some of the scenes and my idea, you're going to go, oh, fuck yeah, there it is.
I can't wait for this. I can't wait. So let's hurry and get there.
Okay.
All right. After one meeting, he confronts Marla. She argues that she's doing exactly what he does and quips that the group's a cheaper than movie and there's free coffee. Instead of ratting each other out, they agree to split up the week and exchange numbers. Despite that, the narrator's insomnia continues. On a flight back from one of his business trips, right after the intense and hallucination of the plane being hit and being ripped apart, the narrator meets Tyler Durden. Tyler offers a unique perspective on emergency procedure manuals in the plane, and they strike up a casual conversation. Tyler is a soap salesman. If he's not working nights as a projectionist and slipping bits of porn between reels at a movie theater where he also works. The narrator arrives at the baggage claim to discover that his suitcase has been confiscated. And then he taxis home. However, when he gets home, his condominium on the 15th story has been blown to bits. All of his stuff from IKEA is on the sidewalk from a faulty gas line ignited by a spark from the refrigerator. Having nowhere to go, the narrator finds Tyler's business card and calls him up. But not before he calls Marla and then decides that that's a bad idea. There is a lot of close cinematography in this movie, like the close up on Edward's fingers inserting the quarter into the phone, the tight camera on the gas line in the back of the refrigerator, like up close storytelling, really, really in tight, stylistic. It feels very much like 1999, but I appreciate it. I like it. I had a little bit of a problem with them showing Tyler as a night projectionist because I couldn't figure out how he was doing this job. First of all, what kind of theater is showing children's movies at night? But, Tony talked me off the ledge with saying it was because it was when Edward Norton is asleep. But I also think that this little scene here with the cigarette burns, that's a thing. It's made up. It's not a real thing. And I thought that I believed all along it was real because I didn't know. And then somebody was like, no, that was just made up for the movie. So Des, what
the cigarette burns?
Yeah. They do have a mark, but it's not called cigarette burns. It's called something cues or something. So he basically made that bit up.
I thought cigarette burns were where the next reel was going.
Nah.
They're just they film them together.
No,
there's actually a whole episode called Cigarette Burns, and it's about that.
Really? Well, I looked it up and it said that it's not a thing because I was like, "What is this? Is this like a thing?" And it was. They say it's just in this movie. It's not real. That there is a cue, but it's called like a continuity cue or something like that. It's not called a cigarette burn.
Okay.
Just said it. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a projectionist, but that's what I read.
We get a good callback at the end of this, where we're going to get the dick shot at the end. That obviously, is just tongue in cheek. I don't think it means anything to the outcome of the movie, but I thought it was great. We were watching. I'm like, what the fuck was that?
The big,
so
I
think I just saw a big dick. Jordan's like, I saw a big dick.
He goes, you have to come out here. He goes, I think I saw a dick.
So yeah, I agree. The look of the movie is brilliant. I mean, it's brilliant. And they do the two different things where like half the movie is kind of shot one way, like in the Matrix, where it's got the green tones when they're in the Matrix, and the other half is shot kind of more traditionally. I thought that was really, really great. Yeah, it's fucking awesome. It's a great movie to look at. Brad Pitt, he's beautiful. The red fucking tinted sunglasses, the off color kind of red leather jacket. It's fucking great, man. Meatloaf is amazing. Ed Norton is amazing. The characters, the world. It's like going to Wizard of Oz, but dirty and fucking full of knuckles, and I love it. Tony.
Oh, the same. Going from his pristine, perfect, everything sculpted apartment to living on Paper Street with Tyler Durden, where it's surrounded by soaked walls, old newspapers, filth, grime, like everything in it, just I don't want to touch. You need a shower, you need a tetanus shot after you touch anything. It's just disgusting. And again, it goes along with the theme of these, like everything they say is about, they look at these models, the Calvin Klein model. It's like, oh, what is that? Oh, that's just masturbation right there. It's like the fact that they want to break themselves down to nothing. I want to be a piece of dirt. And that's the only way I'll know that I've given up everything to be able to become something. It's like they talk about their fathers, they talk about everything. I mean, it's a whole, we haven't gotten there yet, but it's blown away by the dialogue of these scenes.
But what's great about this is, again, making a parallel to the Matrix. So when you're into corporate world and, you're playing by the rules and you're paying your credit card debts and you're conforming, everything's nice and clean and you're eating the good steaks and you got the IKEA furniture. But when you've stripped all that away and now you're going to look for your humanity and not be under the impression of the man, now you've got to live in the dirty fucking ship that's not in the Matrix, where you're eating white slop and wearing dirty clothes and sleeping on a rack, right? So we're really getting that same kind of, contrast in this movie. I feel like this movie borrows a lot from the Matrix, a lot.
What's funny is I never looked at it that way. That's actually I always heard the comparisons, but I never saw them. Now that you're pointing
Yeah.
them out, I'm like, wow, that does really make a lot of fucking
Oh,
sense.
yeah, you
Completely.
get Ed Norton thrown down onto the table in the fucking interrogation room by the police. You know, they rip his shirt off and they rip Norton's pants off. I mean, that scene is almost identical. But it's great. But it's great. This isn't a rip. We do a podcast. We have to talk about it.
And also, just like if you notice, again, another clue is he's got that yin yang table, and it's right there when he
Yes.
shows up at the place and it's on fire. And it was like,
Yeah.
I love it.
yeah, like when you watch it back, you're like, that was a clue.
Yeah.
They meet at a bar and they share a few beers. While the narrator laments about losing his possessions, Tyler shares his philosophy of evolving beyond consumer culture and eschewing material gain. Leaving the bar, Tyler invites Edward Norton to hit him as hard as he can. The narrator, though puzzled, complies, and they engage in a fistfight before sharing a couple more drinks. The experience is surprisingly euphoric, and the narrator and Tyler return to Tyler's dilapidated house, where it's clear that Tyler is squatting in this abandoned building. Tyler and the narrator engage in more fights behind the bar over the coming days, and they soon attract the attention of other tough guys. Finding their own little fighting group growing, they establish a formal fight club in the basement of the bar where they had their first fight. Membership quickly increases, and Tyler and the narrator fashion a series of rules, the first two being the same: you do not talk about Fight Club. The rules are consistently broken, clearly, because members are inviting their friends to join them. So in this scene where they fight for the first time, Norton actually punched Brad Pitt in the ear. That was real. Fitchner told him to, and his reaction is genuine. So just so you know that he actually punched him right in the ear.
I love it. Yeah, for $16 million, Fitchner's like, punch that motherfucker. I'm going to get one great scene out of this no matter what, right? It's funny. There's actually a couple of scenes in this that Fitchner said that he filmed documentary style, and we'll get to another one down the line. But it's, he wanted to film some real life in this, and he did. And it made for some really interesting shots. I agree the narrator is unreliable. But what I love is it's presented to us as unreliable. And this is why I got so quickly that this Ed Norton, that Tyler Durden wasn't real. I knew Tyler Durden wasn't a real person. Now, whether I knew right away that it was Ed Norton and him were the same person, that took me a minute. But I mean, I still got it quick, way before we go on the plane trip from city to city where Norton finds out by talking to people that he's Tyler Durden. And I actually write my notes when we get to it. I was entertained by it, even though me as the viewer already knows they're the same person. I just assumed everybody did. And this was for our entertainment to see it through the eyes of Ed Norton, how he's discovering that he's Tyler Durden, but we already know. And that's how I read it. I mean, honestly, I'm being honest with you. So it's very interesting to me that you guys didn't pick up on that, because it didn't feel like he was trying to hide it at all. Right from the flashing images of a person like following him around as he's meeting this new person. I mean, it's so obvious, but okay. And it left me watching the movie like I was watching a dream sequence or a fantasy. And it had me searching for clues more than I normally would be, because I knew I was being lied to. So I was trying to peek behind the curtain. I thought that was so clever. I thought that writing style was very clever. Tony.
Again, I had no inkling. I was on the ride and just enjoying it. I wasn't reading too much into it. I was watching Brad Pitt wax this amazing philosophy of, it's like what you own ends up owning you. Like, oh fuck, that fucking hits hard, like shit. Um, and just watching Edward Norton just be clueless about everything Tyler's teaching him, the way men should be, the way that we're a generation of men raised by women. Why wouldn't we be this way? It's just all the stuff that I actually had to stop in the theater, like, holy shit, like so much like hit me hard the first few times I saw it, because even if once I knew the twist, still listening to Brad Pitt just go on and on and on was just amazing. And the one thing I didn't touch on yet, I love, as the movie goes on, I love Edward Norton's interactions with his boss. Watching him get more and more ballsy with him, smiling through bloodied teeth at the guy's like, oh, I showed it to my buddy over here. You liked it, didn't you? And just this mouthful of blood looking at him. I'm like, oh, it's what everyone wants to do.
Yes.
It's when you're dealing with these fucking assholes that you have to put on this front for. again, a front. Who is the real you? Who's not the real you? And just watching him act out on it. It's just like acting, just the dialogue. I can't rave enough about all of it.
Yeah.
There are very few things they sit there and go like, "Ooh, that was a little awkward." No, because they committed to the performance, they deliver it like badasses, and they fucking owned every minute of this movie.
Yeah, Tony, there was a ton of exposition, and sometimes when you're explaining things that don't make a lot of sense in a movie, it can start to get a little tiring. You're trying to understand something that's like, fake science in a sci-fi movie. Like we talked about that with The Fly, where we said they didn't go down that road. And thank God they gave us just enough. And Goldblum had the chops on the screen and the presence to where I was interested in what he had to say. They didn't go too far with it. If this exposition was delivered by an actor with less charisma than Brad Pitt had at the time, it might have gone there for me. I might have been like, okay, there's too much exposition. But like you said, Brad Pitt is selling it, man. I'm buying. Just keep talking. Just make that face, flex those abs. Fucking, you're cool as shit. Like, this is the guy you want to hang around with. And I was down for every fucking line he spoke. It was great. It was great. Oh, you're so right. You're so right. Go ahead.
The narrator meets up with Marla by chance, telling her that he hasn't attended any other meetings because he's joined a new support group for men only. While he still treats her with mild contempt, it's clear that he considers her with some interest. When she overdoses on Xanax, she calls the narrator, who, tired of her rambling, sets the phone down without hanging up. He discovers later that Tyler picked up the phone, followed the call to Marla's home, and brought her back to the house, where they engaged in vigorous sex, much to the narrator's disgust. The next morning in the kitchen, Marla finds a narrator who is astonished to see her in his house. The narrator's astonishment insults her, and she leaves in disgust. After she leaves, Tyler enters the kitchen and joyfully reveals that he and Marla had sex the night before, and he also gravely makes the narrator promise that he'll never mention Tyler to Marla. That night, the narrator joins Tyler while he steals human fat out of the dumpster of a liposuction clinic. Tyler says for the best fat for soap, it actually comes from human beings. Back in their kitchen, Tyler shows the narrator how to render tallow from fat. After explaining a bit about the history of soap making, Tyler plants a wet kiss on the back of the narrator's hand and dumps pure lye on the spot, causing a horrific chemical burn. Tyler refuses to let the narrator wash the lye off his hand, saying the water will worsen the burn, and tells the narrator that the burn is a rite of passage. Tyler has burned his own hand in an identical way, and that the horrific pain will make him feel alive. Tyler also forces the narrator to accept allegiance to him and then neutralizes the burn with vinegar. Later, when they meet with the cosmetic salesperson at the department store, the narrator remarks that Tyler's soap sells for a very high price. He's selling it to them for $20, so he can only imagine what they're marking it up to sell it back to them. And they're washing with their own fat asses. So I love the ironic part of that. I noticed that each time you see a chemical burn scar on the back of somebody's hand, that it looks identical. And at first I was like, boy, that's really cheap. They cheaped out and they just used the same mold over and over again to make the chemical burn. And then I was like, oh, it's because he's kissing everybody's hand and he's making the same imprint every time he does it, because it's him kissing them over and over again. So that's why they look the same. But at first I was like, oh, they cheaped out. That sucks. Let's see. And I actually found that out by looking up a portion of the book online, and I read that, and I thought that was interesting. Oh, when you meet Marla, you think she's an asshole. She's a bitch. She comes down to the kitchen. They have this conversation. She comes in nice and then turns nasty and leaves. And I was like, this woman's unhinged. And then when you watch it, when you know what's actually going on, that she's being like, you're the one that changed. And that's why she's flipping. I'm like, oh, she's not a bitch. She's not a bitch. He's a psycho.
She's dealing with bipolar. Yeah.
Exactly.
So first of all, Ed Norton sees Marla after they haven't seen each other at the meetings in a while. And he's like, I'm in a new club. It's called, well, I can't really talk about it, but it's this club for men. And we like punch each other. It's like, everyone's fucking talking about Fight Club. It's a problem. So apparently, how to make the soap, the rendering for human fat, is real. If you follow that recipe, it'll work. But how to make a bomb, they purposely did that wrong because they were afraid people might go out and do it. And honestly, people were very afraid that this movie was going to set maniacs off and have them do crazy shit. Fortunately, it didn't. So from what I understand, the book was even darker than the movie. For instance, there's a line from the book that was changed for the movie when Marla says to Tyler during sex, "I want to have your abortion," and they cut that out and replaced it with like something like, "I haven't been fucked that good since grade school," or something bizarre, which was equally as offensive and insane. Apparently, one of the people on set, one of the higher ups, a woman, demanded that Fitchner take the line out, and he said, "I'll do it on one condition: whatever I choose goes in the movie." And she agreed to it. And she said she was actually offended more deeply by what they rewrote and put into the movie, to Fitchner's delight.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Yes. Yes. So it was that line was swapped out. And for those reasons, the movie almost wasn't made. This one was almost shelved like Appetite for Destruction for being too edgy. And this goes to as far as the executive that greenlit this movie was fired days after for agreeing to make the movie. So yeah, ruined a man's career. Brad Pitt and Helena Bonham Carrera recorded recorded sex noises. They recorded sex noises for 3 straight days, so Fitchner would have enough audio to put together all these scenes. And during the scene where Ed and Tyler, I'm just calling Ed Norton because he's got no
It's
name.
easier, yeah.
Yes. Where Ed and Tyler are drinking and hitting golf balls. Ed Norton and Brad Pitt were actually method acting in that scene. And this is one of the scenes Fitchner said that he shot like documentary style. And he said that was basically just a documentary of Pitt and Norton getting drunk and hitting golf balls in a parking lot. So, yeah, I thought that was all pretty cool. What do you got, Tony?
I had no idea it took 3 days to make sex noises.
3 days worth of
that
recording.
that one's new to me. I mean, I know that Fincher has a really terrible relationship with Hollywood. After the whole Alien 3 mess that happened, they basically he made Alien 3 and just the studio's like, fuck you, we don't like this, we're going to change literally everything about it. And he got, unfortunately, contractually had to leave his name on. He couldn't Alan Smithy it. So I mean, he has a bad taste with Hollywood names. He's going to push every button there is. So hearing that story didn't surprise me when I read that. I was like, well, what do you expect? You're hiring fucking Hollywood bad boy. And if he didn't continuously make hits, he probably wouldn't have the job. But the man can fucking make a movie.
Yeah.
So let him do his thing. It's funny because I actually saw that line on the deleted scenes, and it's such a great fucking scene because it's just Brad Pitt's like look at the camera after she says it. It's such a great reaction to it. It's like,
I wish that was the line. I wish that was the line.
It's a better line, frankly.
I don't know. I like they haven't been fucked like that since grade school.
Should have used them both.
That's a dirt line. But no, Delaney, you touched on the fact that Marla comes across as such a psycho. But once you know how everything goes, it's like you feel bad for her because she's already a fucking mess. That was the one thing I think this time, this watch through, I tried to focus on Marla and who she was. Because I always loved Tyler. And watching the inconsistencies of Edward Norton becoming Tyler, I never really stressed like my focus on Marla. But I had no idea how much of a mess she was. You knew she was. I mean, she walks into a laundromat, takes the clothes out of a dryer, goes and sells them for money. It's like, that to me is just an asshole thing to do. It's not a desperate thing to do. But when you start seeing her taking like the Meals on Wheels for herself, she's like, oh, I got you one in case you wanted one. She's not that bad of her. She's just doing what she can to survive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she has a dark death wish. She is a suicidal character. They don't focus on it too much, but there's enough there to make you go, that's not her first time taking this many pills.
Oh, yeah. And she walking right into the traffic like she does.
Right.
I mean, literally just walking into traffic, and that bus is flying by. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it was making me nervous,
So, I mean, it was kind of an eye-opening experience watching this time through with her because she really is a sympathetic character. Whereas the other two are just such an aggressive, you're either on board with them or you're not. But her, she's taken for the ride. And you kind of like, in the end of it, it's like, oh, fuck, that's just a terrible existence.
Yeah. I mean, I did read a couple of online suggestions that she actually didn't exist either. But there's a couple of occasions where other people are looking at her and interacting with her. And I'm like, I think she's real. And especially at the very end, the guys are bringing her in. They're like
Right.
carrying her in. It's like she's there. Like, as far as I'm concerned, she's there. I think Tyler's the only one that's actually not there.
I agree.
The original Fight Club continues to gather more members until Tyler shifts its focus. Their initial members are invited to the house, but must stand on the front porch for 3 days without food, water, or encouragement, after which they'll be allowed inside. They must also endure insults from existing members and physical hazing. After they're allowed to join the new group, they are required to shave their heads. Tyler dubs them space monkeys. Tyler sets them all to refurbishing the house, performing cleaning chores, and cultivating whatever they can in the small backyard garden. Earlier, Tyler had also spent a significant amount of time building bunk beds in the basement for new members. With the narrator, he holds a college dropout at gunpoint and threatens to kill him if he doesn't pursue his dream of becoming a veterinarian. He allows Lou, the owner of the bar where their fight club is held, to beat him horribly before coughing blood all over him and demanding to stay in the basement. Horrified, Lou agrees. Tyler gives the club members a homework assignment. They'll pick a fight with a complete stranger and lose. The narrator says it's a much harder task than anyone would think. Bob accosts people in a downtown plaza, and another member antagonizes a priest with a garden hose. So I found it really interesting that a group that is about not wanting to be corporate, shunning IKEA, big corporations, franchises, finds themselves in a very cult-like operation. This is very culty. Everyone's shaving their head. They're wearing the same clothes. It's Heaven's Gate. It's weird. And you don't even think about it because it's like, oh, well, they're cool. But it's culty. And you end up with franchises of the Fight Club later on in the movie. So they actually turn around and became exactly what they were talking about not becoming.
So the scene with the Asian shop worker, I really like that scene because of the line where he says, your breakfast is going to be sweeter in the morning, this guy, and it's one of the messages I was saying about the movie where he's saying, if you don't face your fears, you're never going to know. Like, if you just never do it, then there'll always be regret. And once you step up and face that fear and conquer it, it's like the sweetest feeling ever. And I'll give you two quick scenarios in my own life where this happened, where it was just like, oh, it was the best. So the first time I raced the arena cross at the Worcester Centrum, I was so scared. I signed up for this thing like a month ahead of time, and I was like literally losing sleep over this thing, but I just knew I had to do it. And I did it. And I ended up winning a giant trophy, and it was amazing. And then more recently, I've been taking doing the MMA, and I got invited to do the open roll on the Saturday. And I was really nervous to go because when you go there, it's full contact, full speed, and you go until someone taps or the 3 minutes is up. And I ended up going with a 19-year-old kid that was more advanced than me and obviously in better shape because he's half my age. And yeah, he was kind of taking me a little lightly, and I caught him in a paper cutter choke and made him tap out. And I went home that day feeling like $1,000,000 and woke up in the morning and had breakfast with Tyler Durden with a big smile on my face, and it was delicious. So yeah, I really love that about this. That message just rang true with me. It really resonated with me. And I agree that Tyler Durden in Fight Club is just another version of power and conformity over the members that are rebelling against power and conformity. But it doesn't hurt the plot. And I honestly wouldn't give it a second thought if I wasn't breaking down the movie for the podcast. It's absolutely fine. And they're just picking something that feels more genuine to them. And I'm okay with that.
No, agreed. It's funny because I didn't put the word franchise into effect until you really said it. I think they actually say it in the movie once, and I'm like, well, oh, they say like a satellite club is how I think they put it. But you're 100% right. That is really ironic that they're doing it. But again, like you said, if you're not breaking it down, you're not seeing it. And everything that they're against, the Apple computers, they're against the renting, the bringing the magnets into Blockbuster and erasing the tapes. It's like these small acts of terrorism that take on consumerism. It's like, well, fuck, how do you not stand behind something like that when the message is so clear? It's like, we are spending, you work a job you hate to buy things you don't need.
Yeah.
To impress people you don't like. It's like, and that's all of us. We all do it. Yep. And it hurts to be like, fuck, you're right. And it's just, every message rang true for me. And it's hard not to want to back that. But then you're like, well, you're fucking blowing up buildings. You're picking fights with priests. It's like that scene makes me laugh every single time. Him just hosing down the Bible and everything. And the funny thing is that guy who turned the actor in that turns out to be the guy from Mindhunter on Netflix.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
one of the cops. Again, small role, but good for you.
Stuart, I was going to say before that last point you just made, it really reminded me of something though, because for so long I was doing that thing where, I love to collect things. I have lots of things. I collect, vintage guitars. I collect, vintage sports cards. And, these things were possessions that I had, but I had to work hard to have them. And as I got older over the last, mostly like maybe the last 5 years, I've started to realize that my time is the most valuable thing to me now. And to have savings to where if there's no work on a Wednesday, I can tell my boss, because I am a 1099 employee, I can say, hey, you know what? If you don't need me, I'm fine staying home today. My boss is more than, oh, great. And he'll put one of his sons in there who makes half the money I make. So he has no problem giving me days off. So I've started selling a lot of my stuff off. I've sold literally thousands of dollars of baseball cards, Babe Ruth cards, Ty Cobb cards, Tom Brady autograph rookie cards, like big money cards, just so I can have my time back. And that is the message of this movie. You don't work for your shit, take that to heart. Sorry.
No, very
Tony,
true.
keep going.
It's just no. The irony of all of it is like I watched the movie, went out the next day and doing my thing and looking at all the stuff. I went to like this convention. I took my son to like MegaFest. He's like, I want this. I want this. I'm like, we don't need this. We don't need any of this. This is just going to clutter up the house. And I'm sitting there thinking, how much have I spent over the last 2 months that shit I don't need? And I'm like, fuck, this hurts. And then I go to get a haircut. And she uses the wrong fucking thing, and look what I got.
Yeah, she used the wrong shield, dude. She used the wrong shield.
I said, hey, give me
now I know
four.
why you're sitting with your head up in the corner.
I was going to ask if you had a lobotomy, but I didn't want to be rude.
No, that's the scar over here. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, she fucking shaved my head. I'm like, well, I'm a space monkey now. I'm going to stay angry until this grows back in. I am going to fucking work out hard. I'm going to get my abs fucking Brad Pitt style. Like, I am on the fucking... It pissed me off so much. I came home. I looked at my wife. I'm like, I'm sorry. I can't have you be mad at me. I have so much anger in me right now. It's not even funny. So it's like, I lived the fucking movie for about 4 hours. I'm like, I want to destroy something beautiful right now.
Did you ask for the Gomer pile? Did you tell her you were just enlisted?
No, I say no. Hey, what do you do? I usually do like a two on the sides, maybe a 4 on the top. She fucking used the fucking 2 on the top, like right down the middle. I'm like, well, here we are. All right, I'm done.
You were like,
oh God.
You were like, give me the Tyler Durden. She's like, I gave you the Tyler Durden. You're like, no, not the end of the movie Tyler Durden, the beginning of the movie Tyler Durden.
So this is what I'm dealing with now. So anyway,
I bet it's cool.
Yeah.
I bet it feels cool.
Oh yeah, the wife's doing. Oh, look at you, little fuzzy.
Look at that. Cue ball.
It's the irony of this happening right after I watch this movie. I'm like,
shit.
Yep, I love this movie more than anything. I'm living it.
Were you real with her? Did you show your disapproval?
Yes.
Okay, so you said, what the fuck happened?
I said a 4. She's like, well, this is a 4. And she looks, she's like, oh my God, this is a 2. I'm like, you think?
You fucking idiot. Dude, I would have been like, I'm not paying for this. You know this, right? Like, I'm not paying for this. I am fucking leaving. Fuck you. Have a nice day. I mean, not that it's that bad. It doesn't look that bad.
I've had it before. It'll grow back. Yeah. It's fine. It's just not what I fucking wanted.
It's the summer. It's not like it's winter.
Exactly. Yeah. It'll tan over.
It's just funny though. It's just like, come on.
It's just like I said. The timing couldn't have been any better to jump into this movie. So, on a side note, this is what we're dealing with. So yeah, I am ready to fucking hit something.
Okay.
Oh boy.
Moving on.
All right. After a period of days, Marla leaves and Tyler introduces the narrator to his newest hobby. Using his proficient skills in soap making, Tyler has turned the basement of the house into a laboratory where he uses soap and other ingredients to make explosives. Tyler and the narrator continue managing the Fight Club, but this time at a much different frequency. Receiving flack at work, the narrator finally confronts his boss with knowledge about substandard practices and negotiates to work from home with increased pay to keep his mouth shut. When his boss objects, he calls security, but the narrator beats beats himself so severely that by the time security arrives, they are led to believe that the narrator's boss has assaulted the employee, not the other way around. Tyler preaches to his recruits about the detriments of consumerism and relying on society and authority figures. He proposes to revert back to a time where man's worth depended on the sweat on his back and where he only used what he needed. This philosophy evolves into what Tyler calls Project Mayhem, and the fighting in the basements turns into a mischievous act of vandalism and destruction kind of manifesto. Their actions do not go unnoticed, but Tyler manages to show the lead investigator, a police chief, that the very people he's hunting are those that he depends on. Waiters, bus drivers, sewer engineers, etc. They threaten the police chief with castration, and the investigation gets called off. While Project Mayhem grows, the narrator begins to feel more and more distant from Tyler, and jealousy sets in, making him go so far as to beat up and disfigure one recruit because he wanted to destroy something beautiful. Leaving the bar, Tyler drives the narrator and two members in through the rain. Tyler taunts the narrator, suggesting that he hasn't even begun to live his life to the fullest potential. When he allows the car to drift into oncoming traffic and the narrator grabs the steering wheel, Tyler scolds the narrator for being weak and pathetic. Tyler then admits that he destroyed the narrator's apartment. The narrator finally gives in. Tyler lets the car drift and they slam head on to another vehicle. They emerge from the wreck with Tyler exclaiming that the narrator has a new life based on his living through a near-death experience. So the actual message that this movie is trying to get to is a valid one. Don't be a slave to consumerism. Don't judge others or yourself by what you have or what you don't have. Don't dress for other people. These are some good messages. Obviously, it gets a little lost in the sauce later, but initially, I think it's a good message. They purposely styled Brad Pitt in a way that was outlandish and cool. It was supposed to give off an I don't give a fuck kind of vibe, and I think it really works. But I can see why the execs got nervous about this movie. And like Des said earlier, that guy got fired as soon as the box office bombed. He got fired. Luckily it picked up and it got the home video money and it was not lost into,
obscurity.
Yeah.
So in the scene with the boss, like Tony had said earlier, these are all great scenes, and the slow burn is just perfect. It builds up to this final scene between them. The first scene where he gets up and he's very calmly just saying, "This might be someone very close to you," and someone that's just gonna fucking like gut you, basically. So just shut the fuck up and don't bring me your trash. And I just love it. It's fucking great. But I love Fitchner's decision in this final scene to have Ed Norton beat himself up to get to frame the boss, to get the checks and be able to work from home. Very clever. A lesser director might have decided to have, Tyler Durden rough him up somewhere a little bit or shake him up, or even had Ed Norton, pin him against the wall and threaten him. It would have been easy. But to have him beat himself up, I thought it was really clever and cool and hard to watch, and just trying to think about putting that kind of a beating on yourself. Like the glass was stuck in his hand and his arm, and it's like he did this. But then I realized it reminded me of a scene from another movie that came out 2 years earlier called Liar, Liar, when Jim Carrey beats himself up in the bathroom. And
kicking my own ass.
Kicking my own ass here. And it kind of like felt familiar. And I thought it was really cool. I wonder if he borrowed from that. Kind of get yourself out of a situation by, faking a beat down on yourself.
I mean, yes and no, because also, like, as we see later in the movie, this is not the first time he's done that.
No.
And when you watch it the first time, you think he's just being really smart and using this as a tactic. But then you realize he's done this before.
No, but when he did it before, he didn't know he was doing it to himself. He was under the illusion that he was fighting Tyler Durden. This time he's inflicting pain on himself. He's aware of what he's doing. He's conscious.
Right.
Tony.
No, I'm straddling both those lines because I love the fact that he's like, I'm thinking back to that first time Tyler and I fought. It's like, again, there's your fucking telltale sign right there that he's not there. But yeah, when you're first watching it, it's like he is a fucking genius. He's totally putting things into every interaction between the boss and himself is led up to this. You're right. There's no other way this could have gone. He couldn't threaten him himself. Couldn't have Tyler go in. Couldn't do anything even more extreme. That was the perfect way this needed to go. Because like we always do, we try to figure out what's a different way the movie could have gone. there's no other resolution for him and his boss. If he walks out, he just leaves and quits corporate America. Could have gone that way, but it doesn't have the impact and ballsy that this does. But that was just so fucking intense. And like you said, it's a painful scene to watch. Like when he
Yeah.
rolls over and he's trying to, like, he realizes he's bleeding and he's like, holy shit, my whole face is falling out of my nose. It's hard to look at. And the boss's face is just like, I'm terrified. Because what do you do with that? When you're faced with that, you know, and he says it, you know, you're never faced with something this nightmarish. What do? You panic, you freeze. And it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. In the scene where Jared Leto gets his ass whooped, there's a cut scene that was graphic of his face and his nose split bad
Yeah.
that they removed. And I can only imagine because that is a hard scene to watch. Like,
It is.
it's graphic. Like, oof.
Yeah. Just watch it. And then, like you said, the fleshy, how do you put it? The fleshy sounds are like, you know,
Yeah.
it's you're right. It's a hard scene to watch, even to listen to.
Yeah.
You turn away,
Yeah.
you still hear the wet smacks, and
Yeah.
you know, watching the crowd go from rabid behind him to terrified of that's why he's the leader.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like that's why, like, holy shit, this guy is nuts,
Yeah.
and like this is what he could do.
But it's so interesting that he doesn't fight back against the mob boss that comes down that owns the restaurant and whoops his ass, and he just takes the beating in front of everybody, and they all sit there silently like, what's going on? And we didn't talk about that scene, but I thought it was a little odd. He didn't put up any physical resistance and then just kind of rubs a little blood on his face. And the guy then, you know, starts like getting squeamish like a 16-year-old girl after he was just bashing this guy's face in. The whole scene played odd to me.
I think it's because he invited that beating on. He that was the homework assignment he was giving to them. You're going to start a fight with somebody and you're going to lose.
Right.
And he just showed them how to do that.
Yeah,
Hard.
It was more the reaction of the mob boss that kind of, I was like, why is he squeamish now and like kind of giving into this guy? Like, all right, you rubbed a little blood on my face. You own the basement. I'm leaving.
Well, I mean, when the book was written, I think it was the 80s and AIDS was at the height.
Oh yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So,
I'll go with it.
the movies was in the 90s. So, you mean, someone drops blood in your mouth and your eyes, you're like, you're losing your mind.
Yeah. I guess now watching MMA, it doesn't seem that shocking. You know, these guys are drinking each other's blood for fucking 20 minutes. But I guess back then, maybe no. Okay,
Yeah.
keep it rolling.
Oh, dear. The next morning, the narrator wakes to realize that Tyler is gone, even if the entire house is abuzz with Project Mayhem recruits. When the narrator demands to know more about their mischief, Bob tells them the first rule of Project Mayhem is you do not ask questions. Bob is later killed during a botched sabotage operation, and the narrator seeks to disband the group before things really get out of control. He tries to find Tyler and discovers a list of phone numbers he's recently used. The narrator trails the list all over the country, discovering that fight clubs have sprouted up everywhere. At one bar in particular, the bartender addresses the narrator as Sir, which prompts the narrator to ask, hey, do you know me? The bartender, after being assured that he's not being put through a test, tells the narrator that he is Tyler Durden. In shock, the narrator returns to his hotel room and calls up Marla, asking if they've ever had sex. Though irritated, Marla confirms their relationship and states that she knows him as Tyler Durden. Marla hangs up, and Tyler suddenly appears in the room and confronts the narrator, telling him he broke that promise to not speak about Tyler to Marla. A few minutes of conversation confirms that they are indeed one person. The narrator has insomnia, and Tyler's persona takes over when he passes out from exhaustion. Case in point, the narrator faints at the epiphany. When he wakes, he rushes out to leave, only to learn that Tyler has made a long list of phone calls while he was out cold. He returns to Paper Street, only to find it's empty, save for some paperwork left behind detailing the addresses the project plans to blow up. Project Mayhem's plan is to wipe the slate clean on credit companies. In a panic, the narrator grabs all the information and reports himself to the local police. However, after telling the inspector everything he knows and being left with two officers, the narrator discovers that the officers are Mayhem members, and they tell him that they were instructed by him to take the balls of anyone who interfered with Project Mayhem. Even him. The narrator manages to escape with his balls by stealing one of the officers' pistols and runs to one of the buildings set for demolition. He finds an unmarked van in the parking garage filled with nitroglycerin and attempts to disarm the bomb. Tyler appears and goads him, but the narrator successfully disarms the bomb. He and Tyler engage in a fierce fight, which appears oddly on the surveillance cameras since the narrator is really the only person fighting. The Tyler personality wins and reactivates the bomb. I like that we get some time after the twist. I like that the twist doesn't wait until the very end. I want some time to eat this twist, to chew on it, to really kind of come like a come to Jesus moment with it, you know.
Oh, that's coming. That's coming. Don't worry.
You know, like I said earlier, he says he knows something because Tyler knows it. That he told you right at the very beginning of the movie, he told you what was happening, and now you really know it. You can see how clever he was being, but while still being super upfront with everything he was doing, and I appreciate that.
So honestly, this is where the story starts to get off track just a little for me. This Operation Mayhem was okay, and I enjoyed watching Ed fly around and discover that he is in fact Tyler Durden, even though as the viewer, I just assumed we already knew. But watching him figure it out was fun. It was kind of like when in Usual Suspects, where you know Spacey is going to walk us through everything and we're going to go, oh my God, same thing, except only I didn't know that was coming. So it was even better, but same thing, tons of fun. But the whole let's take down the credit card companies to erase the public debt plot was a bit odd. I feel like there was probably another direction Fitchner could have gone to start wrapping this story up that would have had like sharper teeth and just maybe been a little bit more like in tune with the first 3/4 of the movie. I thought it was weird. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't what I was looking for at the end. And as far as the twist that Fitchner is telegraphing, I'm not sure it's as obvious as it seems. I have a different idea about this movie and the narrator that I will reveal during my alternate ending, really building this up. I know you two are going to be like, yeah, you said it, but you're going to have to let me explain it from a couple of angles. Okay, that's what I got. Tony, what do you got?
This better be the best fucking alternate ending ever. This has been like
pretty good.
This has been an hour and 12 minutes of build up. I'm so excited for it. I don't agree. Again, going through trying to come up with different endings, what would be the big thing that Project Mayhem would want to wipe out? And short of like raiding the White House or raiding something to that effect, which was a political move more than a consumer move, this was the ultimate consumer thing: is there is no debt. No one owes any debt anymore. That's the ultimate fuck you to all corporate greed.
But that's not what's going to happen if they do Project Mayhem. Like I said to Delink, it's stupid. Even with no internet, it's stupid. Like if the credit card company burns down, they're not going to be like, oh, all those people just get that shit for free. Oh, well, let's just start over. No, there's past bills. There's evidence. Fucking it's stupid. It's stupid.
Okay.
Why not go the taxi driver fucking route and like give us an assassination on an upcoming president that they have a problem with his ideology and it might actually change the way fucking the public's going to be treated if this guy's taken down.
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you there because that goes to my alternate ending.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think that I loved the revelation because, like I said, I didn't see it coming. When they start flashing the planes and the tickets and the phone numbers, I'm like, once the revelation, I'm like, I sat there in the theater like, they're not going to do this. And they did. And I was like, how are they going to make this happen? And then they go back to the scenes of the beginning of the movie. Him outside handing the beer to Brad Pitt that's not there. Him kicking his own ass and the two guys walk out. All the scenes we've watched this movie happen, now it's just Edward Norton. It's not the two of them. And it was fucking genius. And again, you're like, all right, well, that's kind of cheesy. But then when they start having the fight and it's literally him on security cameras dragging himself up ramps and throwing himself downstairs, I'm like, they're tying this together. They're going for broke. I'm so into this. Like, I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. Fucking great ending. Good twist. Love it. Loved everything about it. The scene with the cops, totally, again, didn't see it coming. Him giving everything to the head inspector and the guy leaves and both of them just standing there like, I really respect what you're doing, sir. It's like, holy shit, they're in it. It's like right there. I like definitely, I don't know if I cackled is the right word, but it was one of those like, fuck, that's fucking perfect. Like I loved everything about that going forward. I have no complaints. I could nitpick it, but you know what? I don't want to. It's so well done. It's so batshit crazy that I didn't see it coming. God bless you, you did. I can't wait to hear this ending. But I was blown away.
I loved everything. I loved the Operation Mayhem. I loved all of it. I just wish the final mission wasn't that simple and realistic and something that just could never work, even in 1998. It just,
All right.
just
Didn't work for you.
go ahead.
Yeah. So I was listening to another podcast that was talking about this movie. So credit where credit's due. They talked about this and it blew my mind. So I have to mention it. They were saying that this movie is almost as if you're watching a Joker movie from the point of view of the Joker.
Yeah,
and I was like,
that's what I
like,
Yeah.
that's really tight. Like, that's cool.
the
like,
new Joker. Yeah,
yeah, like
It's-
the new Joker, even Heath Ledger's Joker, because he had all the people wearing the same masks, like everybody looked homogenized. They were all, and I was like, that actually is
No.
really interesting.
Well, it's anarchy.
But what
Yeah.
Yeah,
But what they were talking about was they were talking about the scene where he sees himself standing on top of the police car while the clowns are burning the city down, and that's not really happening.
that's not what they were talking
So-
about. They were talking about the anarchy. We probably heard different podcasts because
yeah.
that's not what they were talking about. But
Yeah.
just I thought that was really interesting that they said that, and I was like, oh, you kind of are almost watching this movie from the point of view of quote unquote a villain,
Yeah.
because that if you were a regular person in this movie, they are villains,
Yeah, we'll get to it.
Oh, okay.
We'll get to
Okay. Don't mean to steal your thunder.
it. You guys are going to hate my ending, but it's so good. And I have proof to back my ending up,
All
too.
right.
That's the thing. I have film proof in this movie that will back this up.
Okay.
can't
Is it the clip of the dick?
No. That's for later.
It's his most paused scene.
All right. And now we return to the opening scene from the movie. The narrator again tells Tyler, I still can't think of anything. Tyler smiles and says, flashback humor. The narrator begs that Tyler abandon the project, but Tyler is adamant. He professes that what he's doing is saving mankind from the oppression of consumerism and unnecessary luxuries, and that there won't even have to be any casualties because the people who work in the buildings at night are all Mayhem members and know what's going on. Near breaking point, the narrator comes to realize that whatever Tyler does, he can do. He sees Tyler with the gun in his hand and realizes that it's actually in his hand. He puts it up to his own chin, puts the gun in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. The bullet shoots out the side of his jaw, and Tyler is killed with a gaping wound to the back of his head. As the narrator recovers, members of Project Mayhem arrive with snacks and Marla. Seeing Tyler's wounds, the Mayhem members leave Marla with him to go fetch some medical supplies. Tyler now stands with Marla, and it's Ed Norton Tyler, stands with Marla and tells her that everything's going to be fine as the first detonation ignites the building in front of them. The others on the block soon follow suit, and Tyler takes Marla's hand in his and tells her, you met me at a very strange time in my life. They watch as the explosives go off and the buildings collapse. When Chuck Palahniuk wrote the book, he did not realize that Tyler and the protagonist were the same person until he was about 2/3 of the way through writing, and he had to go back and readjust what he had already written to fit the narrative. And I thought that was very interesting because it changed, it probably changed everything about that book. So I'm glad that he came to the real, it's almost like the characters told him that had to happen. And I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, so I've always loved this formula of movie making where you bookend the ending and the beginning of the movie, and then you fill in the middle as you go along. But it has to be done right? Like Usual Suspects again. And again, it just feels very similar. The storytelling is very similar to Usual Suspects, a movie that I love. Again, this whole let's blow up the buildings, burn down the paper trail, it's a little wonky and out of character for the movie, but I get what Fitchner was trying to say, something about society, and didn't want this to just be a movie about lonely men punching each other in the face. But unlike The Matrix, that lent itself to deeper meanings, I'm not sure this story and these characters benefit from this credit card fucking ending. I wish it had been something else with much, much sharper teeth that left a deeper scar in the last 15 minutes of this movie. Something that really kind of just, it needed a vinegar bite and it wasn't there. It didn't cut through. But again, I'm nitpicking because we're breaking it down for the movie. The end is fine. It works. It never bothered me. And the single frame shot, that's actually Meatloaf's dick.
Shut up.
No, it's not.
I'm lying.
I'm
I'm
lying.
lying.
It's
That's a
not.
lie.
You wouldn't do
That's
that.
a lie. That's a lie. That's what I got. Tony, what do you
I
got?
don't have anything to add to that. I'm a huge fan of the whole movie. The ending summed it up really as best that they could. I liked that him and Marla ended it together. I
Yeah.
love the final line. You met me at a very, made me a very weird place in my life. It's like, how many times have people said that to everybody else after this movie? Um, yeah, I don't have anything to add to it. I'm dying to hear your ending. So
Good
that's it.
ending. All right, let's do it. So we have broken down this movie. Let's go to the recasting couch and our alternate ending. So first, I would replace Brad Pitt with either a roughed up Matthew McConaughey, who I believe could play Tyler Durden. He's extremely charismatic and can play a tough guy.
Sure.
Or the mighty Sean Penn, who I bring to every recasting couch, who also could definitely pull this role off. He's really good looking. He's super cool and he's super tough. And I think with the right hair, makeup, and wardrobe, Sean Penn would have been a more than serviceable Tyler Durden. Tony, what do you got for the recasting couch?
I actually went Edward Norton. I went young Al Pacino. Awkward. The way he delivers his lines as Michael in The Godfather when we first meet him, he's very unsure of himself. He's very timid. He's very weak. Doesn't portray himself very well. We know where he goes from there, so it wouldn't be that much of a stretch for a young Pacino to do that. And that's really, I mean, I almost went a young Dustin Hoffman too, but I can't see Dustin Hoffman ever turning the corner to being a cool badass. But young Al Pacino, we saw how he becomes. He's a total badass.
Right.
But
Oh, yeah.
the way he started, I could totally be him, like all of like the nebbish kind of. Anyway, that's what I have for casting couch.
I like it. I like it a lot. Lynn, how would you do it?
So one person that had been suggested and thought of for the role of Marla that you did not mention was Winona Ryder. And they kind of said, oh, well, you know, they've kind of already done the goth Winona Ryder thing with Beetlejuice and everything else. But the way that she acted in Girl Interrupted, like, is very Marla. It was very, very Marla. And I think that she could have pulled it off. That's not to say that I don't like what Helena Bonham Carter did, because I love her and I think she did amazing and I don't want to recast her. But I think if I'm going to make a recasting, I think I'd go with Winona Ryder.
Nice. All right. So now it is time for the alternate endings.
As if we'd end the movie like that. Yeah.
Let's do the Scooby-Doo ending.
Good call.
So after Ed Norton shoots himself in the head, we see the flash from the gunshot and then a close-up of a pool of blood collecting on the floor. As the camera pulls back, we see it's Marla laying dead on the floor from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, telling us that she is actually the narrator, which I actually suspected throughout the movie, especially when she's walking back and forth in traffic and the cars are not reacting to her, nothing's swerving, she's not looking. The director makes a point to have her walk back and forth through that heavy traffic several times. Or in the basement of the Fight Club house. Ed is going to be talking to Marla, and she's going to leave. And as she leaves, she is passed immediately. They basically brush shoulders by Tyler. There's no interaction at all. They walk past each other like they're ghosts. The only one that sees them both is Ed. So this is almost like she's narrating this movie through a schizophrenic episode from the perspective of three people. That's what this movie is, okay? It's one person schizophrenic fucking episode as they're seeing it through three people. Now Marla sees herself as Ed Norton because she is disassociation with herself. So she's created Tyler and Ed, and she is Tyler Durden. And that is why when Ed Norton runs out into traffic after he leaves the police station, the cars are all swerving to miss him because she identifies with him as being real. She doesn't identify with herself as being real or fucking Tyler Durden. And for these reasons, that's my ending. And I think it's pretty fucking awesome. Hell yeah. Tony, what do you got?
I'm so confused.
It's Marla.
That's what we waited an hour and 26 minutes for. Is Marla? Everything you talked about could easily be okay. You know what? It made you happy. Okay. I'm not gonna
Okay.
go in. I
It's a fucking good
I
ending.
actually dig it. I dig it, but I have a
It's a
lot
good
to
ending.
talk about with it. I didn't have anything that detailed. It did lead to the ending changing from the credit card thing, which was the ultimate consumerism, to, like you said, taking it even bigger and making something more of a political statement. With one of the Project Mayhem members working their way up to become president and adjusting
I love
the
it.
future economy, the future, and basically them focusing on, like, we're going to get rid of oil, we're going to go all electric, going against the, you see the newspaper flashes, you see, the basically the ending credits roll over the news of, like, he won, somehow he pulled it off. And you've seen the auto industry is all up in arms over his choices, the oil industry is all up in arms over his choices, everything is all chaos. You see the stocks going down, it's all the CNN, the Fox News, it's all that going on because Tyler's inside man is there. And when we cut to the inauguration, the vice president is Tyler.
Okay. I love your ending. Only when they cut at the end, the new president who was just elected, we don't know who he is, but he looks into the camera after his speech. He's got a little butterfly stitch and he winks at the camera. There it is. They got a Fight Club member in presidency. That's a badass ending. I love that.
So that's what I had.
I love that. But wouldn't it have worked if they had panned back out of that puddle of blood and it was Marla on the floor with the gun in her hand? I mean, it would have been just as good of a
you couldn't do it there because we had 10 to 15 minutes walking us through why Edward Norton and him were the same. We couldn't leave 5 minutes at the end and say this is now Marla, because you gotta convince the shit out of me how Marla is walking into places and selling things and getting together with him, and because people interacted with her. There's too many instances, like the cars were swerving around her and beeping, so they see her there. They're not swerving around Edward Norton in traffic.
No.
In
the Edward Norton scene, the cars are literally almost crashing. They're swerving in and out of lanes and braking. When she's walking back and forth, not one car even touches their brakes or swerves a little. Her dress isn't even flowing.
I'm going to have to look at that again, because I could have swore they were beeping, at least because she's walking in the middle of it. I could be wrong.
I love it. It doesn't matter. Your ending's better anyway. That's fucking amazing. That is the ending that I needed. That, like I said, would be that cut of vinegar. At the end, you realize, holy shit, they got a Fight Club member as the president. And he winks with like a little cut on his eye or something. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. That makes it a perfect
Or he has the scar on the back of his hand or something.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
When he puts his hand on the Bible at the end.
Yeah, there it is.
That's
He
when
puts
you
his
see
hand
it.
on the Bible. It's a fucking mark on his hand. I love it. That's a 5. That movie's perfect. Awesome. We came together and we did it.
Kumbaya.
What did you have, Dylan? I want to hear yours.
Oh, it's not going to be as good as yours. So mine was at the end when he blows his brains out. First of all, he sends Marla away and she does not come back. So she's gone. He puts the gun in his mouth. He blows his brains out and the buildings start blowing up behind him because Tyler dies, but the buildings are still blowing up. And as the buildings blow up, you're back on the plane where he first, quote unquote, met Tyler Durden, and the plane is going down. And that's where the explosions are coming from, because the plane is ripping apart around him as he's disassociating as the plane goes down. Yours is way better, but that was my
Tony. I think everybody came prepared. I'm going to give Tony an A for his report.
And my haircut.
And your haircut.
He gets a lollipop for the haircut.
Myself a B plus for mine, maybe BB plus. Dylan's going to get a B as well. I thought it was very clever, but all of us, A plus. I feel like Fitchner had heard that idea. That would be the end of this movie. Yeah. He'd have been like, oh my God, yes.
Change that.
So that's an A plus. Nice job, guys. All right. That was awesome. Let's do some final thoughts and a rewatch score. This is an iconic movie for a reason. This is pop culture for a reason, because it's fucking awesome. Pitt and Norton are great. Super stylistic flick, and I really enjoyed it. my only ding is just that little ending spot, which is nothing. This for me is 4.63. It's killer. Tony, what do you got?
This is going to be rare for me because I'm going high on this one because watching it again, it's not one of those ones I'm going to pull out and go, oh, you know what I feel like watching Fight Club because it's not a happy movie. But
No.
man, when it's on, I always watch the ending. And watching it last time made me realize I fucking love this movie. Like I dream of writing dialogue like this. Like, you know, when that era happened, like when Tarantino came out and all the movies that copycat, like, oh, I want to write like Tarantino. I want to write gangster stuff. When this came out, like, this is the movie I wish I fucking wrote. I wish I had the ability and brain power to write dialogue that's so cutting and sharp and deliverable and meaningful. So, I mean, this one for me, again, with everybody involved, I got to say, this is going high for me. This is like a 4.83.
Nice. I was there. I was in that. It's in that. It's better than 4.5.
Yeah,
That's all
definitely.
I know. It's great. It's almost perfect. With your ending, it's perfect. Lynn, go ahead.
You guys pretty much said it all. I don't think I can add much more than what I already did, other than to give it a 4.811.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a good movie. And it's like,
it's funny.
Yeah, and it's like, like I definitely also heard like some people talking about how like, it's like it's like a male masturbatory fantasy, blah, blah, blah. But it's like penultimate lesson at the end of the movie is not that. It's like that's the dressing. It's not the actual salad, so to speak.
Of course.
So I'm going to give it a nice high score because it deserves it.
Nice.
So that gives it a 4.757. See, that lands us at number 10.
Oh, nice.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, right at number 10.
We're coming up on our 100th episode soon.
Ooh.
You guys know I am still holding on to the pilot episode that Lynn and I did so long ago of Blade Runner, where we're like, oh yes, I do concur in the information all was really, oh yes, like it was the fucking gayest thing ever, and I have it. So okay,
we're still sitting on it, but it's boy is it bad.
Tony, you know what we need to do again? We need to do Jaws again, because when we did it, the audio, like, it's done in Braille. Like, you can't even hear it. It's an unlistenable. I've tried to listen to it. You don't even, it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's just.
We'll redo it. We can redo it. Why not?
Oh, twist my arm. Okay.
Yeah, we definitely should. That's one that I want to get done right.
All right.
And what'd you say was around this movie? 11 and 9? What were they?
Let's see. It is right above it is Die Hard. And right below it is Sinister, but it's also tied with Fast Times.
Okay, that's fine. That's all good.
Those, yeah.
It's all good.
Those are all good flicks. I'd watch them again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to watch Die Hard before this every single time because it's just a bowl of mac and cheese. Yeah. It's so easy to consume. Okay. We'll be back next week with Pat, and his also has a goofy haircut, if that makes you feel better.
I didn't say mine was goofy.
What are you trying to say, Des?
Pat gets a lollipop with his. At least you have a man's haircut there. His like belongs on like a 5-year-old kid first day of school. Like, it's not good. It's not good.
Poor Pat, leave him alone.
Yeah, poor Pat. But we're going to be doing Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger for that one. We're going to be back with Mikki and Tony after that to do 28 Days Later. And then we'll be back with Tony after that to do the Mighty Brain Scan. Look at Tony's face. He turned Chinese for a second. He was like, what?
Have you seen Brain Scan?
I've never seen it.
No. With the trickster, you've never seen it?
I've never seen it because I've heard nothing but terrible things about it.
Oh, okay. We got to do it then.
Right.
It's got
Fangoria
ridiculous. Magazine. It's got Fangoria magazine in it. This is what I imagined Tony was when he was younger.
All right.
He's like, he's not Ed Norton. He's his buddy, his best friend, Kyle. That's Tony. He's a drummer. He's got the jacket. He goes to school with the long hair. He loves horror. They have a horror club.
I have no idea what any of this means, but I'll go with it for now. Right.
Did you have a horror club? Did you have a horror club in school?
No, we didn't do that. That was organization. We just all liked horror.
Okay.
But if we label,
they have a horror club in this.
All right.
They have a horror club in this. Okay. Go over to Breaking Vinyl. We broke down the Mighty Appetite for Destruction this week, and we did Dawkins last week, and we'll be doing Jagged Little Pill by one Alanis Morissette in 2 weeks. So there you go. All right, everybody. Again, just take a moment, hit the like, hit subscribe, share the podcast. And until next time, I just have one question for you. Hey, did you ever see that movie? See you next time.